Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. Today we are continuing on with Codominance by CurlyStar09, and today's chapters are 29 and 30. Chapter 29, A Way Around. The report was sent in with a few omitted details and some others that were fabricated by the group. It was the only thing they could do to throw Yasushi off their scent. They also added a few details that would raise a flag if they saw any interference in the process. They would know that they were on the right track. Now it was all about waiting. They sat nervously around the meeting room, unsure what to do next. Fatgum had taken Akio down to his office, and now they were just thinking of a way to proceed. They had the picture of Kazuko from the hospital Ashido and Uaraka had gone to, but they couldn't do anything without raising suspicion. They had to find a way around that allowed them to investigate without anyone in the HC noticing them. They had added to the report that they had been in that area, but nothing about what they had found. Maybe we should not do anything for a bit. Shinso suggested, breaking the tense silence. Fuck that, Bakugou said as he turned to glare at Shinso. We can't fucking just let them keep our daughter as if I'm not saying we are going to stop, Shinso interrupted. We just don't go sniffing for a bit. Make sure that no one thinks that we are onto something. The moment they know we've found the hospital, it's the moment they run. Who knows if we would be able to find her then? They could still run, even without us getting close, Kirishima said quietly. We run the risk of that either way. We may as well do something. We need to talk to Endeavor about this, Deku declared. Maybe he could make it so that we can operate more independently. Or even get to the point where they remove Yasushi as the person overseeing the investigation. There are a lot of weird things going on with all of this, and there was to be no way. That could still take days, Bakugou barked. I still think we can do this on the down low. We would just have to have our story straight if questioned on this by anyone, Sero added. There has to be a way we can make him lead us to them. Maybe there is, Ashido chimed in, all eyes going to her. The way I see it, we know a lot of things they think they are getting away with, so let's pretend we don't know and are still looking for them. We do what we were doing and pretend we aren't finding anything. They will think they are getting away with it. That could work, Uaraka gasped. They already know Mina and I have been going around the area. They just don't know exactly where. It would be suspicious if we just stop. The area is much bigger than what we covered, so it is possible that we could just go down there and look around some more, Ashido continued. Give them a false sense of security, Sero finished. It sounds risky, Bakugou mumbled as he thought it over. Everything we do at this point is going to be, Kirishima pointed out, eyes on the table, as his hand turned into a fist. We may as well try it. Bakugou looked at his partner, reaching over to place a hand on top of his. All right, but we are going to do this. We are going to be careful. Sero and Shinso will go with you and watch you from a distance to make sure you aren't being watched or followed. At the first sign of danger, they will make an excuse to get you back here. Understood? Everyone nodded and made sounds of agreements. Endeavor is here, Todoroki told them as he looked at his phone. Fucking finally, Bakugou said. Time passes. Endeavor walked into the conference room, looking completely pissed off, but that wasn't uncommon for the once #1 hero. Even though he was mostly retired from field work, he was still very active in the hero world. Todoroki had once said it was his father's way to make up for the mistakes and problems he had caused. Endeavor didn't have a fiery beard anymore, and he was wearing casual street clothes as he found a seat at the table. What is this about? He huffed, already annoyed. How much do you know? Bakugou asked with a raised eyebrow. Enough to know that this is going to be a lot of paperwork. Endeavor snapped back. There is a mole in the Hero Commission. Todoroki said, sounding annoyed at the little game they were playing. They seem to be a part of the villain group that was trying to clone heroes in order to form an army. Not only that, but they have another child with them. Endeavor blinked, turning to Bakugou. You couldn't have led with that? Thought you had already been told there was a mole. Bakugou huffed as he glared at Todoroki. I told him we had suspicions of something. Todoroki shrugged. Deku started, always slightly nervous, near his boyfriend's dad. There is the issue that they are overseeing the exact mission that is trying to track them down. What do you know about the man named Yasushi Miyahira? Endeavor thought about it for a second. The name is familiar. He is the type of guy that blends into the background. Raised through the ranks by working hard as far as I know. Met him a couple of times due to his position. Other than that, I don't know much. I know his quirk is analytical, or something related to that. Deku's head snapped up at that. Analytic? Yeah, something about being able to spot random patterns in numbers. He started out in accounting, I believe. Endeavor explained. Deku got up from the table, heading out with a quick, I'll be right back. Everyone watched him leave, but didn't question it. What can we do about this? Kirishima asked. Any way that we can get him off our backs? Not likely, at least not without putting everything on hold while there is an internal review of the situation. Endeavor shook his head. We don't have fucking time for that. Bakugou groaned. That's what needs to happen, unless you have evidence that proves him guilty without shadow of a doubt, Endeavor told them. What's the other way? What do you mean, other way? Endeavor questioned. There's always another way, and if anyone knows it, it's you, right? Sarah questioned, eyeing Endeavor carefully. The pro-hero hesitated for a moment. The other way would be submitting the actual reports through me. Make it clear that you have issues or reservations about your point of contact. Then what? Bakugou asked. Then the tricky part starts. The point of this is for all of you to be protected in case you get accused of submitting false reports. Other than that, it would start the internal investigation without alerting Yasushi. It would not put anything for you to pause, but everything would have to be as quiet as possible. The problem is, if you are wrong about this, it could backfire on all of you. The room went quiet for a bit, letting Endeavor's words sink in. When can we get started on that? Bakugou asked. Right away, Endeavor told him. I'll get started on that. The rest of you start working on the search, Bakugou told them as he started to get up. He should probably work on this somewhere else and get Fat Gum's input on the issues as well. Suddenly, the door slammed open as Deku rushed in. The code! Deku said as he went and laid some documents on the table from before. The code, everything was written in. It was nothing but patterns and numbers. I think he created it, Deku said all in a rush as he went over the papers. Everyone stopped and stared at Deku, who only got more irritated about it. That's how we were able to break the code, by looking at the pattern. I am sure he created it, and I can prove it. Then get to it, shitty nerd, Bakugou told him. I'll help you, Uraraka said. Another set of eyes wouldn't hurt. I also think I should read some of those files and see if I find something you missed. With that, and after a bit more discussion, Uraraka and Deku took off. Endeavor and Bakugou followed soon after, on their way to talk to Fat Gum about the situation. Time passes. Kirishima didn't know what he was looking at anymore. The more information he had in front of him, the more he felt lost about the whole situation. How was he supposed to find anything more useful than what they already had? They should raid that hospital and search it from top to bottom until they find their daughter. At least have surveillance on it around the clock for any suspicious activity. Instead, here they were, trying not to get caught doing their job. It was exhausting. All of this was just exhausting. They had to play along in order to keep Katsumi safe, and it was the only reason he wasn't already at the hospital demanding answers. That didn't mean he didn't have the address burned into his memory, though. Kiri, Ashido started, looking at him with worry. If you want to take a moment, it's fine. I'm fine, Kiri answered, maybe a bit too forceful. There has to be something here that would be helpful. Bakugou was with Endeavor, Fatgum, and Todoroki trying to figure out the logistics of their plan. How much to put in reports so they didn't seem too short, and which parts to omit completely. He would love to be there, but he was never good at designing reports. He still follows the template Bakugou had given him when they first started writing sample reports at UA. He needed to focus, but all he could think about was the fact that their hands were tied. There was no way for them to make a move without calculating every single outcome. It felt suffocating already. Kirishima stared at the papers in front of him, all the information on how his twins were created and all the reasons the villains had to do so. It was making him furious, but he was pushing it down. He needed to know this, know exactly what they had saved Akio from and what they would be saving Katsumi from as soon as they could. Kiri, you're not okay, Ashido told him. He looked up to find her glaring at him. You can't just bottle all of this up. Then what the hell am I supposed to do, Mina? Kirishima huffed. There is nothing I can do right now. How else am I supposed to feel? Am I supposed to feel glad that we found the mole and everything has turned so much harder for it? No, but that just means you're doing everything that you can to make Katsumi safe. Isn't that what's most important right now? Ashido responded. She's right, Sero chimed in. You know we are doing the best we can. It is frustrating, but we will get Katsumi from them. I know, Kirishima repeated, trying to convince himself. It's frustrating. If we had known sooner, if we don't get there in time. That's with every mission, Sero reminded him. It sounds cruel, but that's the life of a hero. We are going to do our best to bring her home. We just have to make sure we do this right, Ashido added. Kirishima nodded. He knew all of this. He did. It was just hard knowing it was his daughter. It was this sinking feeling in his stomach, the pure, unfiltered despair that he couldn't shake off. Maybe I do need a minute, Kirishima told them, standing up. He needed to talk to Bakugou, his partner being the one person that shared this unique experience. Time passes. Bakugou was leaving Fatgum's office when he ran into Kirishima. By just looking at him, he knew something was wrong. What's wrong, eh? He asked, rushing forward towards his partner. Kirishima shrugged before shaking his head. I feel so hopeless, Katz. What are we supposed to do with our hands tied like this? Hey, Bakugou said as he leaned in, cupping Kirishima's face. We've had worse odds before. We always make it through. I know. It just feels so different this time, Kirishima countered. I know. We can't afford to lose ourselves right now, Bakugou told him. If you need a minute, I understand. I can't do this without you. I wouldn't leave you alone for this, Kirishima said in a rush, arms wrapped around Bakugou. I just feel so useless right now. I know what we have to do. Just trying to fight the urge to just go search for Katsumi this very instant. I know. I'm trying to find a way around all of this, Bakugou admitted, leaning his head against Kirishima's shoulder. What did Endeavor and Fatgum agree on? Kirishima asked after a couple of seconds in silence. We're going to be sending the original reports to Endeavor. I will be the one editing the reports to submit to Yasushi. He only expects me to send them anyway. Kirishima nodded. All right, let me know if you need any help. I will, love, Bakugou assured. Okay, don't want you to overwork yourself, Kirishima said with a heavy worry in his voice. Same to you, Red. Bakugou huffed, but he smiled as he pulled away. We got this. We will go rescue our girl before you know it. I'm sure we will, Kirishima smiled, but he was still worried about what was to come. Time passes. The warehouse wasn't the best place they could have chosen to hide. It was just practical. It was a good distance away from their original hideout, but still close enough that they had been able to move most of the equipment they still needed, or at least the ones that were the hardest to replace. After all, just because they didn't have someone to create new specimens for them didn't mean they shouldn't be ready. He may be able to release Kazuko Mazu once everything dies down a bit. Just let the pro heroes follow their own tail for a couple of months. Maybe let them catch some lackeys that knew close to nothing to satisfy them. He still wasn't sure what the plan was. A cry broke through his thought process. He turned to look at the only remaining specimen they had. Blonde hair that stood at odd angles and red eyes full of tears. Pathetic. They needed something useful, but this was nothing more than a burden. He had no other option than to let it grow up. They would find some use for it sooner or later. He scoffed before calling for someone else to take care of it. He fixed his tie as he started walking out of the building. He had a meeting at HC in half an hour after all. He had to keep playing his part in all of this. Chapter 30. Decoding. It had been days since they had decided to submit fake reports to the Hero Commission. It was a lot of secrecy and trying not to call attention to themselves. Akio went back to daycare. They had decided that it was safer. Make it seem as if they just wanted to spend some time with their kid and try not to be overprotective of him. It would make it obvious that they knew too much about what was going on. Kirishima was nervous about it, but he knew that the daycare they selected was safe. They even got Endeavor to do an investigation on the daycare, just for extra peace of mind. It didn't stop them from rushing over to the daycare at the end of the day, or the way they would hug Akio close once they had him back in their arms. Bakugou had started staying late to finish up the fake reports ahead of time, making sure no one was giving them away, that every detail matched up with the ones from the one before. It got to the point that Kirishima had to drag him to bed, wrapping his arms around him and asking him to please join him. Bakugou would relent both from exhaustion and from wanting to spend time with his partner. They would curl up together in bed. Akio would already be in his crib, which they had moved into their room, needing to hear their son's even breathing. Bakugou would kiss Kirishima's shoulder while the redhead would bury his face in the blonde's hair, whispering "I love yous" until their eyes grew heavy. It made the nights easier, even with their fear and anxiety growing every day that they couldn't do anything and the desperation was only getting worse. Ashido and Uraraka had continued their undercover work. Ashido spends at least an hour applying makeup each day to cover her pink skin and wearing a hat and a wig to hide her horns. Uraraka wearing a wig herself and making sure to have a face mask on as they checked every single place they could think of that could give them any clue to where Katsumi may be. Comparing just about everyone they passed to the list of known villains and or offenders, hoping they would get lucky somehow. Sero and Todoroki watched from a safe distance and kept tabs on whatever they needed, as well as making sure no one was watching. They had spotted no one, and it seemed like they were still operating without raising suspicion. Shinso had gone back to his work as an underground hero, talking to his informants and asking if anyone knew anything. There was nothing yet, but there were a few people who said they had seen movement in the area they were keeping their eyes on. It got to the point that Aizawa had stepped in as well, and even though Eraserhead was mostly teaching now, he still had a wide web of contacts that were willing to help him out when needed. It turned out to be very helpful when it came to gathering information, and even more when they were able to keep the people that would spread the news of their activity quiet. It was all about patience, but it was hard to keep themselves from rushing with that time over their heads, not knowing just how fast they had to act. Time passes. Bakugou was in his office when Kirishima walked in. He looked up briefly, raising his eyebrows as he continued typing. Kirishima wasted no time, walking over to his partner and kissing his cheek. Bakugou let out a hum before turning towards Kirishima, a hand on his partner's cheek and pulling him back down for a proper kiss. "We have to pick up Akio soon," Kirishima reminded Bakugou as they pulled away. It was almost their usual quitting time, and that meant heading home with their son. I know, love. Just finishing up. I need a couple more minutes, Bakugou assured him. Kirishima kissed him again because there was no way to be content with just one kiss, not when it came to Bakugou. All right, want me to wait for you outside? No, you can stay here, Bakugou told him. I just need to send the report in. Kirishima went to sit on the chair across from Bakugou and watched his partner type quickly on his keyboard. It was almost calming, and he loved the way Bakugou's face scrunched up slightly as he thought about what to say. You're so cute. The words slipped out, but Kirishima didn't regret them. Bakugou turned to look at him, a soft chuckle escaping him. Really, eh? Right now? You are cute. What do you want me to say? Kirishima said with a shrug and a playful grin. I am the #2 pro hero in Japan. I have a quirk that could level a whole block, if not more, easily. I could kick your ass. I let you win. And you're calling me cute? Bakugou finished. Also, not true. I win fair and square every single time. Keep telling yourself that, Katz, Kirishima grinned. Bakugou let out an annoyed huff, but his smile didn't waver before turning back to his work. Rematch, he challenged as he started typing again. Kirishima just chuckled. He knew that his partner won't go down that easy. It hadn't even been a minute before Midoriya burst through the door. I figured out the code, he exclaimed as he rushed forward, even using his quirk slightly, making him run into the desk. Slow the fuck down, Deku, Bakugou told him before letting out a string of curses. What did you fucking figure out? The code, the one that they used for all of their notes. We had the basics, but there was a good chunk that we didn't know enough about to be able to decode it. It was left as an afterthought or more like something to be solved later. Then, when we found out that the quirk could have been using to make it, I looked more into it. Quirks always have a certain way, even if they're physical or mental. I learned about that from Sir Dynamite, and let me tell you, it has been very helpful through the years. Like, so many people just focus on their physical quirks to the point that, get on with you, shitty nerd, Bakugou interrupted with a huff. Oh, right, Midoriya said as he turned the files he was holding in his hands. They have everything here. It's all written out once you figure out the code. Wait, does this mean what I think you're saying? Kirishima asked, eyes wide. We have all their hideouts, every single one, Midoriya told them with a smile. Just need time to decode them all. You aren't shitting me, Bakugou asked, grabbing the files and scanning over them. I'm not, Midoriya assured him. It's all math, and there were so many things that we missed thinking they were just numbers. How fast can you get this decoded? Kirishima asked. 2 days, maybe 1. I don't want to risk inputting it into any computer, Midoriya explained. They talked about it some more, trying to figure out the best way to go about it. They had limited time, and now it seemed like they finally had the advantage. Time passes. They were a couple minutes late for pickup at Akiu's daycare. Kirishima apologized to the staff, who told him it was fine to be late every once in a while. They made their way home, and as soon as they walked into the door, Bakugou had set his papers out to decode. They had decided to work on it together. Midoriya, Bakugou, and Todoroki were the best with this type of thing, and they had all gotten a part of the decoding. It was faster that way, and it meant getting Katsumi faster. Kirishima had told Bakugou he would get Akio ready for bed on his own and let the blonde continue working. He got a kiss as a thank you and a promise to head to bed early. Kirishima nodded, taking Akio with him for a bath. Akio splashed in the water, giggled, and shrieked happily. Kirishima couldn't help but smile. Hopefully, soon they would have their 2 babies together. For the first time in days, he was feeling hopeful. Once Akio was dressed in his pajamas, Kirishima took him to their bedroom. Akio was already fighting heavy eyelids and rubbing at his eyes. Do you want a story, little pebble? Kirishima asked, trying to think of which one to tell him this time. They had gotten into the habit of telling Akio stories of their hero work, some censored more than others, but their son seemed to enjoy them anyways. Kirishima was about to start, getting ready to set Akio down in his crib, wondering if he should get him a bottle when he stopped short as he saw what was inside. Katsuki? He called out, and then he turned around. He saw Bakugou already at the door with a small grin. Thought we needed another one, since we're getting our girl soon. Bakugou explained. Kirishima turned to look back at the crib. Inside were the sharks they had gotten on their trip to the aquarium, plus one more. Exactly the same as the one they had gotten to represent Akio, but Bakugou had put a small red bow on its head. Kirishima felt the tears pooling in his eyes. Bakugou rushed towards him, his hand going to his cheek. Shit, sorry, love. I thought you would. I love it, Kirishima told him, leaning into his hand until he kissed his partner's palm. Thank you, sweetheart. We are getting close, Bakugou assured him. Katsumi is going to be here soon. I promise. Time passes. Everything was working in his favor. The heroes were finding nothing, and it was clear by their reports that they were looking in all the wrong places. Miyahira had a bit of a scare when Red Riot's phone lost the spyware that had been installed, just to find out that the hero had broken it during patrol. Nothing that hadn't happened before, but he did need to find another way to spy on them. Not that he needed to, the reports were more than enough to know exactly what they were up to. He was just used to having insurance. The investigation was so far off that he felt it was time to start preparing a relocation for the operation. They had another hideout a couple of hours away. Shouldn't be too difficult to move without raising any suspicion if they started slowly. Sir, a voice interrupted his train of thought. He turned to find one of the lackeys in front of him. Yes, he said with a fake smile, having to play the part when he was in the Hero Commission building. How can I help you? We have the new report for the investigation you are overseeing. Would you like us to leave it here? The lackey asked, showing him a folder. Please, give it here. I will get started with it right away. Another smile, and a few seconds after, he was alone once more. Time passes. You need to rest, Todoroki said softly as he walked up to Midoriya, a hand on his boyfriend's arm. I'm fine, Shoto, Midoriya assured him as he continued to work on decoding the files he had brought home with him yet again. Their kitchen table was completely covered by papers and notes. No, you are not, Izuku, Todoroki told him with a frown. You have been working non-stop on this. I haven't said anything because I know how important this is. But you haven't been sleeping much, and I can't let them get away with it, Midoriya interrupted. I can't let them hurt Katsumi too. He ran a hand through his hair and then rubbed at his eyes. Todoroki let out a sigh, sitting in a chair beside him. Darling, I know you're trying to help, but it isn't going to be helpful if you work yourself into the ground. Todoroki frowned at the thought. They killed so many of them, Shoto, Midoriya said just above a whisper. All because they had no quirk. Because I was born quirk. It's not your fault, Todoroki assured him, his hand finding its way to Midoriya's cheek. You didn't know what they were planning. You didn't know what they were doing. No one did. We helped save Akio. Now we will save Katsumi. We will make sure those people get the punishment they deserve. 75 attempts, Midoriya whispered. Not all of them were born, but there were a good amount of those that were left for dead or killed. I just can't. Maybe if... No ifs, Todoroki told him. We are going to leave all of this here for tonight. We are going to go to bed. You need some sleep. Midoriya could just nod, unable to deny that he was exhausted any longer. Todoroki closed the distance between them, kissing his boyfriend softly and gently. He knew just how heavy this mission had been on Midoriya. Even if he hadn't been able to intervene as much as he would have liked, he knew Midoriya was the type of person that works until a case is closed, and he just needed to make sure he didn't overwork himself. Midoriya let himself get led to the bedroom. Todoroki let his boyfriend wrap around him, buried his face in his neck. He felt Midoriya let out a shaky breath as he settled down against him. Todoroki wasted no time tangling his fingers in green hair, making sure that his boyfriend felt safe and secure because even the number one hero needed to be protected sometimes. Even the number one hero had days he needed to reach out to someone and let himself break down. Todoroki was ready to be there for Midoriya in any way possible or for whatever reason. He knew that Midoriya blamed himself, and it was hard for him to see past that. He needed to make up for it in some way, and there was no way to fix something when it was this bad. I love you, Todoroki mumbled into Midoriya's hair, placing a kiss on the top of his head as well. I love you too, Midoriya replied, voice already a sleepy mumble. Todoroki would make sure that Midoriya was taking care of himself, and he will make sure that those who caused this got what they deserve. All right, friends, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed these chapters. I hope that you are enjoying it as it draws to a close. And yeah, I hope that you guys will come back and join me for the next piece. The next chapters will be 31 and 32. I hope to see you guys next time.